Less than 1 month from the NBA's annual trade deadline, and there remain a few marquee players' names involved in active discussions between some of the front offices. And Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher, he made a good point yesterday, I thought. We already have seen 3 all-star guards change locations this season. Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, and James Harden all dealt before November. And then we had New York acquiring OG Anunoby, sweeping another big name off the board. Fisher continued, so now consider the possibility that Zach LaVine, who Chicago has explored moving since the summer, and then the Raptors' Pascal Siakam, they both remain with their franchises past the February 8th buzzer. It's a possibility. That would leave Hawks guard DeJounte Murray emerging as perhaps the most likely all-star caliber talent to be moved at the deadline. So this article from Fisher got me thinking, who have been the biggest names moved over the last 5 deadlines? And how did the immediate future sort of pan out for those teams that acquired said players, star players? So let's take a trip down memory lane here. 2023. This one's pretty easy. There's 2 to pick from. KD, the Suns acquiring Kevin Durant and TJ Warren from the Nets in a 4-team trade with the Bucks and Pacers. Brooklyn received Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, 4 first-round picks, 23, 25, 27, and 29, and a first-round pick swap in 28 from Phoenix. Ooh. Yeah. Jay Crowder headed to the Bucks. Indiana netted some second-round picks and took on players into cap space. But, yeah, this was obviously the biggest name dealt last year. A couple days prior, Kyrie Irving going to the Mavericks as well. I'm going to leave that one because we've talked about that one before. But how did it work out? It was weird, right? KD hadn't played for a while because he had a MCL sprain, and he had been out since January 8th, so he'd missed 20 games. When he did play in his first game for Phoenix, it was on the road. He looked good, 23 points, 6 boards, 2 assists in 27 minutes. They beat the Hornets. They won. They would go on to win their next 2 road games. KD scored 37 in one of those. It was like, oh, okay, he's back. But on March 8th, Durant slipped and sprained his left ankle during pregame warmups.
Right.
Knocking him out what was going to be his first Suns home game. He missed the next 10 games due to the injury, and then he returned, and he still looked good. The Suns won another 5 straight with KD averaging about 26 points per game. They went 8-0 when Kevin Durant played at the end of last season, and then they make it into the playoffs. He plays in all 11 playoff games. They beat the Clippers, in 5, and then they lost to Denver in 6. So the jury's still out on this one because there wasn't a lot of time at the end of last year. They won a playoff series. Now Beal's there, and we'll see. It hasn't been great, their overall season, but it's still like a TBD here. But by far the biggest name. I mean, Kevin Durant, one of the greatest players of all time, being moved at the deadline, that's going to be tough to beat.
And thank you for mentioning that he's great. And a great teammate, I have heard. But I wonder, I haven't gone through all of Basketball Reference, but I do love the transactions part of a player's page.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Kevin Durant's for this trade.
I'm there too, baby.
And the paragraph is 10 lines long on my computer for all the stuff that was involved, because it's a 4-team trade, lots of picks with lots of conditions on them. Is this the biggest chunk of text on all of the Basketball Reference website? We're going to get into some more big trades here. I'm like, we might see some nice pros from a Harden trade. I don't know. Whatever the biggest trade is, most players, most picks, I would love to know.
Yeah.
I went over there to see about those first-round picks that you were mentioning.
That's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
What Phoenix was able to get. Literally 5 first-round draft picks?
Brooklyn able to get,
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, for Kevin Durant.
Because, I mean, 4 first-round picks and then the swap.
Yeah, so, I wondered when it all happened. I thought, it was in the works for months because Kevin Durant seemingly wanted out, and the Raptors seemingly had an option to go trade for him if they wanted to give up Scotty Barnes. But also, apparently, you'd have to give up basically every draft pick you own, essentially.
And this was honestly, let's just call it the Matt Ishbia trade, right?
Yes.
Yeah. New owner of Suns come in and says, hey, we can get Kevin Durant. Give him whatever they want.
Come on, James.
Empty the cupboards. Get him in here.
Yeah, and I guess that's the last one, including Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, of the huge amount of draft picks, right? I mean, that's this. I guess the Drew Holiday was prior to that, but that was 3 with 2. This was sort of the end of, I think, the last time that this many draft picks were traded for a player.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, you're saying you don't think we're ever going to see a trade again that has 4 first-round picks?
I can't see that.
And then maybe some swaps too?
Yeah, maybe.
It's a lot.
I'm just not able to live in the future. But right now, because of the apron and everything, it's literally like one draft pick per person, or maybe 2. Maybe.
Yeah.
But for Kevin Durant, obviously, you give up a lot. But they haven't. They got to the second round last year. That's about it.
Yeah. It took 2 games off the eventual champions, but we'll see here. Okay, let's go to 2022. There's actually 2 from this one, and I want to touch on both of them. The Nets and 76ers agreed to a blockbuster deal just hours before the trade deadline. James Harden, Paul Millsap going to Philadelphia, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round draft picks going to Brooklyn. This was 2 teams swapping unhappy superstars or stars, I mean, maybe not a superstar for Ben Simmons, who had been seeking trades. And again, it came in right before the buzzer. At the time of the deal, the 76ers sat 3 games out of first place in the Eastern Conference. Harden came, he played 21 regular season games. He averaged 21, 11, and 7. Team finished 51 and 31. That was good for 4th in the standings, so they slipped from 3rd to 4th, but it was really close. And then what happens? Well, good old James Harden goes on to struggle in the postseason there for Philadelphia. He shot just 40% from the field in the 2 series. He was particularly bad in the losses. And it was a little bit more of like, we've seen this from James Harden at times.
What about the next season, though, Skeets?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
What about the next season? How did the playoffs go?
Well, better, honestly. He had some better games and then some really stinkers. But it is funny to think, how did this go for Brooklyn getting Ben Simmons? I mean, even worse.
I guess if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, you look at this and say the Sixers still owe us a 2027 pick, and James Harden is now on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
The Simmons thing has not worked out for Brooklyn, but maybe the picks will.
Yeah. The other one that's more fascinating to me is in the week leading up to the deadline, the Pacers agreed to send 2-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday to the Kings in exchange for Tyrese-Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. So this deal was fascinating because it involved 2 teams that had been trying to shake up their rosters because both were in the middle of disappointing seasons. The Pacers were 13th in the East at the time of the trade. They were 19 and 36. And the Kings, who came into the season, you might remember, with a strong desire to make the playoffs and to end the drought, they were stuck at 13th in the West. They were 20 and 35. So they basically had the exact same record, same spot in their conferences. And so they made this deal. We'll give you our one really promising young guard because we feel confident enough with Fox for your 2-time big in Sabonis. And this one's worked out really, really well for both teams. The Pacers finished that season with just 25 wins, but Haliburton averaged 18 and 10 over the final quarter of the season in Indiana, and he blossomed into an all-star the following year. And they also won 10 more games the following year, and now he's, the leading vote-getter for East guards. And the Kings finished the 21-22 season with just 30 wins, but Mike Brown came in, he's hired, and they eventually snapped the playoff drought. And Sabonis has been putting up some monster numbers as of late, too. So this one worked out well. 2 thumbs up. One of the rare win-win trades, really, at least so far.
Yeah, only the Pacers are able to pull this kind of thing off like they did with Victor Oladipo and Paul George as well. It's rare that you trade 2 guys and both players in the trade become all-NBA players, but that's what happened. And you could throw Fox in the mix as well because he became all-NBA after Sabonis showed up, started setting screens, and helped take a little load off him.
Yeah, the Kings had 2 big guard options there, and they had to get rid of one of them, sort of. They moved on. They didn't have the Fox-Haliburton chemistry working there, so they got Sabonis in there because they needed a big, just like what the Raptors just did. They need a little Nick. They needed a little what the Knicks also got in that one. They're both winning because Knicks have scorers. They need OG, and the Raps needed a little bit of guard play as well. But Haliburton, I thought, was going to be the winner of all things in this trade, but it really has worked really well for the Kings too. 2021.
Biggest name involved in this trade deadline. Trey Kirby is nodding his head. He knows who it is. The Magic traded all-star center Nikola Vucevic and veteran forward Al-Farouq Aminu. There's a name I had not thought about in a long time. To the Bulls for Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, and a pair of future first-round picks the Bulls own in 21 and 23. That 21 pick, Franz Wagner.
Franz.
Pretty damn good. 23, Jet Howard. Verdict still out on that one. But yeah, Vooch was cooking this year when they made this deal. He was averaging a career high 24.5 points per game, 12 boards, 4 assists. He's doing it in Orlando. His scoring dipped in Chicago, but the efficiency and the other stats stayed pretty similar. The real kicker here for this trade is that the Bulls, with Vooch, have played in just 5 playoff games.
Yeah, but how many of the Magic made?
Yeah, that's a good point. Fair. Would you rather have Franz Wagner than Vooch, though? I know it's who knows what
for
happens.
The future.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, of course.
I mean, Franz is hurt right now, but this trade has basically ended up being Vooch for Franz Wagner.
Yeah.
Wendell Carter Jr. seemed like the big piece that the Bulls were giving up, but he played 62 games with the Magic, then 57. He's only played 13 games this season. He's putting up a triple single. He's their 3rd best center, so losing out on Wendell Carter Jr. doesn't seem to have been as bad as it seemed like it could have been for the Bulls. But yeah, Franz is going to be a star eventually. But the Bulls at this point were just trying to get back to the playoffs. So they succeeded. And I can still remember walking through the parking lot at Bass Loft, Skeets screaming, "And no!" blasting the Alan Parsons Project. I was excited, and then Zach LaVine got COVID, and the Bulls didn't even make the playoffs that 2021 season.
Right.
Yeah, right. And if I think Lonzo Ball doesn't get hurt, they don't have a good future in general. Like if he's there playing, they'd have a great future.
Yeah,
but it was a great start. They had the perfect chemistry. I thought they were a really good team. But if Lonzo Ball ain't there, then obviously it goes poof and goes nowhere really.
Later in the day, by the way, the Nuggets won the Aaron Gordon sweepstakes during this trade deadline. Because it was like the Magic were trading everybody. They were like, okay, we're trading Vooch, trade him to the Bulls, and Aaron Gordon, who wants him, and the Nuggets got him for Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and Denver's 2025 first-round pick, which is top 5 protected. And that one we talked about not long ago, actually. Aaron Gordon, it wasn't amazing right from the jump, and there was injuries to the Nuggets, but of course it paid off with the way he played in their championship run.
What happened to R.J. Hampton? Everybody was in favor of that
Miami
for a
Heat,
while.
I think now, right?
Is that right?
I think I saw him.
He definitely has bounced around.
Yeah,
but he's barely playing.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
2020, biggest name was probably D'Angelo Russell. The Warriors traded D'Angelo Russell to the Timberwolves, along with Omari Spellman and Jacob Evans. In exchange, Golden State received Andrew Wiggins, a protected 2021 first-round pick, who would become Jonathan Kuminga, and a second-round pick. So I always forget. I got to be honest. I always forget D'Angelo Russell was on the Warriors for a hot minute there. And the Wolves had their eyes on D'Angelo Russell since 2019 free agency. He was like a top target for them. They wanted to, I think they offered him a 4-year contract, but the Warriors swooped in with the 4-year max salary offer as part of a sign and trade in the Kevin Durant deal, which got KD from the Warriors to Brooklyn. Again, I forgot about that. KD actually signed with the Warriors. D'Angelo Russell signed with Brooklyn, and then the trade occurs. But 7 months later, 33 games with the Warriors, D'Angelo Russell, he's finally teaming up with his buddy Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. And D'Angelo Russell and Andrew Wiggins was the biggest names traded on the 2020 deadline.
I mean, Russell at that point was an all-star, right? I guess he wasn't coming off an all-star appearance in that season. I don't remember the year he made it, but it could have been. But
2019. Yeah.
When that happened, when the whole Durant, D'Angelo sign and trade happened, everybody said, "Oh, they're just doing this so they can have a big contract to trade." And that's exactly what happened because D'Angelo Russell had his career high for the Warriors, 52 points in Minnesota.
Ooh.
That's crazy. He, of course, mentioned that he's good friends with Karl Anthony Towns. They got together, I think, along with Devin Booker on a Slam magazine cover or something like that. And then, the Warriors went on to win the championship 2 years later, and the Timberwolves went on to trade D'Angelo Russell as well, and now they're in first place.
Trading D'Angelo Russell works out for teams.
Yeah.
He was totally adequate in Minnesota. It's a classic D'Angelo Russell where he won them some games and definitely lost them other games, but he played brutal in a 6-game series loss against the Grizzlies in 2022. He shot 33% from the floor. He was really, really bad. And then you said it, Wiggins, man, he turned into an all-star. Andrew Wiggins was an all-star. And a big part of that was the Warriors were rolling at the All-Star break. They had like 42 wins. I remember us debating, like, is Andrew Wiggins really an All-Star? Is he just he's getting the Warriors bump here? But anyway, he made it, and then he went to the next level the next year and helping them win the title. And now, what's so weird about it all is now he's like, he's back to being even worse than he ever was at the end of his Minnesota days with whatever's going on. Yeah.
It was the ultimate locker room environment there in Golden State because people questioned, why are you acquiring Andrew Wiggins? Because the Minnesota run was obviously filled with many, many points, but not a lot of championship-type aspirations. And then he went and won one with the Golden State Warriors. So it might seem stupid now because of the way Wiggins is going right now and that he signed a 4-year deal with Golden State. But looking back, it was a heck of a deal. The whole thing from Kevin Durant to D'Angelo Russell that turned into Andrew Wiggins. They had to trade Amari Spellman. I get it. I remember Amari Spellman and Kevin Huerter and Trae Young in their press conference when they were drafted here in Atlanta in 2018. Oh, it was fun. But Amari Spellman didn't last too long. No. He was part of the weird Golden State days when they were going 15-50. That quick year. But Wiggy.
I just like the timing of this
Wiggy.
One because
and Kuminga was part of that deal as well.
Well, he was the pick. Yeah.
They should have picked Franz.
Yeah, right. Same draft. I think what's fascinating is the timing of this, right? Taking this little trip down memory lane. It's because, like, at the time, it was like, is Andrew Wiggins' career salvageable? Like, can anybody sort of save this? Like, he'd scored a lot in Minnesota, but obviously he was on the, felt like he was always on the El Tizo team, right? It was like, oh, he's really good at times, then he goes missing. And so he did, the Warriors did. Can it happen again? Is he too old? Is it over? I mean, I wouldn't bet on it happening again, but, I mean...
It might his be name the ultimate El Tizo.
Yeah.
Falling out in the finals, signing a $100 million contract extension a couple of months later, and then what we've seen since.
2019, our final year here. The biggest name traded at the deadline actually occurred a week before, and it was the Dallas Mavericks acquiring all-star forward Kristaps Porzingis, along with Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Courtney Lee, from the Knicks in exchange for a package that included point guard Dennis Smith Jr., DeAndre Jordan, your boy Wesley Matthews, and 2 future first-round picks. 2 fun notes about this Porzingis deal, him going from New York to Dallas. The deal apparently came together after Porzingis met with Knicks management on that Thursday and left the franchise with the impression that he wanted out. He's like, he doesn't want to be here. The meeting apparently lasted 5 minutes. That was reports at the time. And I guess the Knicks called New Orleans about, hey, can we get Anthony Davis? And the Pelicans were like, we're not all that interested. We don't even think Porzingis will sign here long term, so no, we're out on that. And instead he goes to Dallas here. But that made me laugh. 5 minutes, Porzingis. They're like, he doesn't want to be here. Trade his ass.
Yeah, and they tried to make it work with him and Luka, but it just ultimately... He just kept getting hurt there, and you see what the Celtics are doing differently. They went and paid a lot to go get Kristaps Porzingis, but he's sitting out fairly regularly to keep the legs fresh as much as possible, and when he's out there, looks fantastic as a support guy. But he was an all-star way back when with the Knicks. Yeah. Things look good. Then he got hurt, unfortunately, right then and there.
So he was the biggest name at that deadline, but the most impactful player traded during the 2019 deadline was the Raptors acquiring Marc Gasol. Yeah, from the Grizzlies for Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, CJ Miles, and a 24 second-round pick. Raptors president Masai Ujiri said at the time, Mark brings significant playoff experience to our team, which along with his savviness and leadership skills really helps position us for an ultimate postseason goal. He called his shot on that one. Gasol played in all 24 playoff games. He averaged 10, 6, and 4, had a steal and a block. He hit 34 total three-pointers in that postseason run. Was a huge reason why they took care of Joel Embiid and sort of contained him. So, yeah, Marc Gasol was the most impactful player. But going through this, big names, but when you see the list of all the deadline moves, there are so many that are like pointless. And, it'll happen again, and we'll talk here at the table. Oh, yeah, this is a game changer. This might mean this. But in the end, 90% of them have very little impact on the actual season. Yeah. But anyway, that was fun to do. A little trivia question, though, off of Gasol. Those 34 made three-pointers in one postseason run. Only one other player listed 6'10" or taller has ever hit more in a single postseason?
Kevin Durant.
In NBA history.
Dirk.
No. No and no. Center. Sorry.
Not Towns.
Okay.
Center listed 6'10".
I'm like, 34 is not
taller.
that many, so should be gettable. A center.
It's gettable.
Some threes. Brooke Lopez?
No.
It wasn't Towns.
No. I mean, you got to remember, you got to play a lot of games.
Yeah.
Like, so that's
yeah,
like,
who knows? 2 rounds, you get hot.
Yeah.
3-point shooter.
So somebody went.
Bosh? Nah, he wasn't.
Bosh has one of the highest. I think
Yeah.
he hit 30 in one of the postseason runs. Channing Frye also had one postseason run where
yeah.
he hit a ton.
Oh, yeah.
But you haven't named
that.
the guy yet. He's a superstar.
Jokic.
Jokic.
Yeah,
Jokic hit
Yeah, he did
42
that.
threes in 19 games during the 2020 postseason, and then he hit 35 threes during last year's championship run. But still, pretty freaking impressive. Marc Gasol hit 34. That's wild. Because that guy, like, we talk a lot about Brooke Lopez. I was thinking about this. Like, I'm glad you brought that up, Trey. About, like, wow, this guy didn't shoot a three-pointer, like, for the first, like, 7 or 8 years of his career, and then suddenly turned into this amazing three-point marksman. You know, Marc Gasol, not as much, but Al Horford should be included in that, too. Al Horford made, like, 23s in his first, like, 7 years in the league, and now is, like, one of the better big men from shooting distance, and he's done it in the playoffs, too.
Yeah, and I bet you look back, he probably shot less twos in that playoff run.
Yeah, maybe.
He
Yeah.
was just standing at the 3-point line. And he did it in very limited minutes, too, because he was sharing the center role with Serge Ibaka. He wasn't playing a ton.
Yeah.
But he was out there shooting when he was out there.
Yeah, if you round down to include 6'9" guys, Al Horford tops the list with 47 made three-pointers in just 23 games during the Celtics run to the finals. So, yeah, he was letting it fly. And again, he barely shot in Atlanta. I can't remember one single Al Horford three-pointer in Atlanta. But he added it to his game. Anyway, there it is. Again, the last 5 trade deadlines, biggest names traded. Who will it be this year? I know TK was very happy with the Lakers' loss last night because every Lakers loss means it's maybe more likely that they make a trade for Zach LaVine.
Skeets, do you think it was a coincidence that I mentioned the Lakers need 3-point shooting this
I
season?
do not. I do not indeed. No, you got to talk it into existence, my man. Zach LaVine, Siakam, DeJounte Murray, or you never know. Maybe there's a surprise out there.